Today we are going to be learning how to use partial quotients to divide with greater dividends. So in the last video we learned how to use partial quotients to divide just with smaller numbers, and today we're going to look at some larger numbers and use the same methods to help us figure out the answers to division problems. So number 1 says 277 divided by 5. So just like in the last video, I'm going to set up my box with the 5 on the outside and 277 on the inside. And then I have to ask myself the question, how many 10s and how many 1s go into 277 when they're multiplied by 5 without going over? So let's first think about our 10s. As a reminder, 10s are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and 90. So any of those are options that you can multiply by 5 to get close to, but not over 277. So let's try to figure out our 10s. I'm going to do 40 times 5 as my first one. So 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 4 is 20, and I get 200. 200's close to 277, but I think I can get closer. So I'm going to try 50 times 5. 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 5 is 25, and I have 250. Let's see if I can get any closer than that. I'm going to try 60 times 5. So 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 6 is 30, so my answer is 300. That is way too high, so I'm going to stick with my 5, or my 50. I'm going to write 50, so now we have to multiply 50 times 5, which we already did to get 250. Now we subtract, so 7 minus 0 is 0, 7 minus 5 is 2, and 2 minus 2 is 0. Now that we have this, we have to scoot it over to the next side. So now we have 27 left over. And now I have to think to myself, how many 1s, when multiplied by 5, will give me something close to 27 without going over? So luckily, I know my 5 facts, and I'm going to count by 5s and use my fingers to keep track of how many times I count. I want to see if I can get close to 27 without going over. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. I have 5 fingers up, so that means that 5 times 5 is 25. That is the closest I can get before going over 27. So I'm going to use 5 as my 1s. So 5 times 5 is 25. Now I subtract. 7 minus 5 is 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. So I actually have 2 left over. So now let's find our answer. So I have 50 plus 5, which gives me 55. And since I have 2 left over, this is like a remainder. So 55 remainder 2 is my answer. I have 55 and 2 left over. So 277 divided by 5 is 55 remainder 2. Let's try another example. For number 2, we have 1,436 divided by 4. So let's first set up our problem by putting our 4 on the outside and 1,436 on the inside. So let me think to myself, how many, or what times 4 will give me something close to 1,436? I'm going to try some hundreds. So let's see. We can do 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, or 900. I'm going to start with 300. Let's see. So 300 times 4, we get 1,200. I say that's close. Let me just double check to make sure that 400 isn't closer. So 400 times 4, we have 0, 0, and then 16. That's way too high. So I'm going to start with 300 as my first number. So 300 times 4 will give me 1,200. So let's subtract that. 6, 3, and 2. So we have 236 left over. I'm going to scoot it to the next block. Now I have to ask myself, how many times does 4 go into 236 without going over? So basically we're going to look to see how many 10s do I need to find. Is it going to be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, or so on? So let's try 4 times 5, or 4 times 50. So 4 times 50 is 200. It's close, but I think I can get closer. So let's try 60 times 4. We have 0 and 24. Oh, that's actually too high. So that means that our winner is 50. So I'm going to write 50 on the top. And then I'm going to write 200 and subtract it. So 6 and 3. So I'm left with 36. I'm going to scoot that over to the next block. And now finally I need to ask myself how many ones. How many ones can I use to multiply by 4 to get close to 36? So let's think. I'm going to count by 4s in my head and see if I can get close to 36. 4, 8, 12, 15, 18. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36. So that was 9 fingers. So 4 times 9 gives me 36 exactly. So that means I'm going to use 9 ones to get to 36. So 9 times 4 gives me 36. So let's subtract. And we get to 0. So that's how we know we're all done. So let's add up all of our numbers here. We have 300 plus 50 plus 9. And our answer is 359. So 1,436 divided by 4 is 359. Let's try one more problem. Here we have 2,562 divided by 7. So let's first set up our problem with our box. So 7 on the outside, 2,562 on the inside. And now let's think to ourselves, how many hundredths can I multiply by 7 to get to close to 2,562? So I'm going to try, so we can try 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. I'm going to try 400. 400 times 7. So we have 0, 0. 4 times 7 is 28. And it actually looks like 400 is too high. So let's try 300. 300 times 7. We have 0, 0, and 21. I think that's the closest we can get, so I'm going to put 300 on the top for my hundredths. Then we're going to multiply, so 300 times 7 is 2,100. Then I need to subtract. So I'm left over with 462 that I'll scoot to the next side. And now we need to see how many tens do we need. So that means 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and so on. So I'm going to start with 50. So I'm going to do 50 times 7. So we have 0 and then 35. Now remember, we need to get to 462, but we cannot go over. So I think 350 is a little short. It falls short. It's a little too low. So I'm going to try 60. 60 times 7. We have 420. I think that's pretty close. I'm going to try 70 just in case. And 70 is too high, so that means I'm going to use my 60. So we have 60. 60 times 7 is 420, so I need to subtract. And I'm left with 42, so I'm going to scoot that over. And now I need to ask myself, how many ones do I need? So I'm going to think in my head of basic facts. What times 7 gives me something close to 42 or gives me 42? I know that 6 times 7 gives me 42, so that is going to be my answer for how many ones. So 6 times 7 is 42. If I subtract, I get to 0. That means I'm all done. And now I need to add all these up to get my answers. So we have 300 plus 60 plus 6, which gives me 366 as my answer. So 2,562 divided by 7 is 366. This is how you use partial quotients to divide greater dividends.